Konnichiwa, and welcome to Top Class Tokyo, a weekly podcast about life in Japan and the collision of Asian and American culture. I am your host, Kim, English teacher by day and by night, podcaster extraordinaire, broadcasting to you from Tokyo, Japan. Joining me today from sunny Los Angeles. Is it sunny there? Justine.
It's hazy. Okay, for 80 degree, 70 degree weather, it was hazy, but the breeze was crisp. So yes, still sunny.
Still sunny. Nice to see you again this week, my lovely co-host Justine. I just always assume it's always going to be sunny there, so I mean...
You're more likely going to be right, because it is.
More often than not. All right. Top Class Tokyo. So, unfortunately, this weekend I was actually busy with actual school classes and whatnot, doing interviews for entrance exams and prospective students coming to my school. So, I feel like Justine is going to do the heavy lifting this episode. We're talking about her Osaka volunteer experience. So this week's topic is how to work in Japan without working in Japan.
Literally all of my mid-20s, I committed several days, well, I guess maybe months of research of, all right, let's go do my first solo trip, but also I'm still in forever false scarcity mindset. Therefore, I'm trying to decrease my expenses as much as humanly possible. So the start of this journey was me specifically being like, you know what I want to do? I want to solo travel. You know where's the best place to solo travel? Japan, because my early childhood and teenage years and early 20s is pretty much me being a weeb and cosplaying and doing all this anime stuff and being like, yeah, let's go to Japan, it'll be fun. And it's true, it was fun, but also being a recent graduate and being poor, I was like, okay, let's not be poor or as poor anyway. So I was trying to strategize the best way to really do long-term travel without having to spend an excessive amount of money on accommodations and transportation. Specifically accommodations, because if you think about it from a travel perspective, the biggest expenditures is probably going to be transportation and accommodation, because hotels are expensive. Transportation builds up depending on how much of the country you're actually visiting. And yeah, I think those are my big major components I wanted to decrease in terms of making my first solo travel to another country that's not America or Canada affordable.
Mm-hmm, right.
And yeah, so fitting those criterias, there's a couple of communities that I uncovered when I was planning my first extended travel trip. And those two communities were couchsurfing and woofing. Couchsurfing, it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a community where people like get together. They share cultures, they share experiences. It's a big like travel community where if people are trying to find crash space in said country like Japan or Korea, or it's a more global if anything. So anywhere you want to go, there's going to be a couchsurfing community. And it's great though. I feel like couchsurfing community, I wasn't involved with it since the beginning because it's been around for like decades. But their app is actually pretty helpful in connecting with other people who want to share their cultures, make new friends, etc., etc. I made a lot of really close friends through couchsurfing, and it's really beneficial because I think one of my the first friends I made when I traveled to Japan was through couchsurfing. It's beneficial too because if you end up vibing with your host, you can be like, hey, I need a place to crash for like a couple days or whatever, or depending how cool your host is, you guys can have a conversation of like, oh yeah, you can stay this many days, blah, blah, blah. And being a woman and being solo traveling, at first I was kind of like, kind of sus, so I'm gonna be more cautious about this than just like gung-ho, oh hey, I want to crash at your house. It's like, definitely pay attention to like how you feel. If you're not comfortable with things, don't move forward with it, especially if they're apprehensive, like, oh yeah, you should totally stay, you should come over today, and just like, if you feel like it's a bad idea, don't do it.
Let me back up one quick minute just to
Okay.
like explain for anyone who's never traveled abroad, for anyone who's never entered Japan, just some basic things that you may or may not know about coming to Japan on a tourist visa. So a tourist visa, if you're an American with an American passport, you do not need to do any kind of visa application to visit Japan. So there's like an automatic agreement, so you can just come to Japan just using your US passport, and the tourist visa, which you automatically have as a US citizen, is good for 90 days. So you can come to visit Japan and stay for 90-day increments. So at the end of those 90 days, you would have to return back to the United States. And if you wanted to come back to Japan, you could go back to the US, stay for a day, and then fly right back out. And then reset those 90 days if you wanted to continuously stay in Japan. Or if you are coming on a like Asia tour, you could come to Japan, stay 90 days, hop to another country, just as long as you're not on Japanese soil for any more than 90 days. That's how long your visa would last in Japan. So I just wanted to add that quick note before you kept going.
I got really excited to be like, hey guys, this is how I saved a bunch of money traveling, being a poor recent college graduate.
These are all really, really good points, because any travel trip, you're like you said earlier, your two biggest costs are going to be accommodation and transportation. So it's going to be like your flight, where are you going to stay? And so like, obviously the flight is probably the biggest non-negotiable thing that you can, that you're just going to have to, that chunk of change is just going to come straight out of your pocket. You don't really have much choice, right? Because you're at the mercy of the airline and your scheduling. So I wanted to share this awesome information, this awesome experience that you've had in being able to travel Japan for extended periods of time on this like shoestring kind of budget. So yeah, I had heard about couchsurfing before, like way back in the early internet days, before it was even an app, and it was just like a straight up like forum on the internet. But that's kind of cool, because I haven't really revisited that community. So it's cool to see how it's developed now into like mobile, and it's now an app. Like, how does it compare to something like Airbnb? Like, is there any money being exchanged with your host, or is it just like this person is just like opening up their home to you, or does it depend?
Per the community, it's not like, oh, you need to pay me this much money to stay here, because that isn't like the purpose of the platform. Like, if that was the case, they would be more on Airbnb or something like that. But specifically for couchsurfing, it's just like, the purpose of it is to get like-minded individuals that want to either share their space or share their culture or share something with other people who are interested, and just like that cultural exchange is the core of what I feel the couchsurfing community is based off of. Because they really just want to be able to be like, oh, hey, you're human. Hey, I'm also human. That's tight. So like, that aspect of it is why I'm really like, I really enjoy this couchsurfing community because of that purpose. It's not really like, oh, I'm gonna make money off of you, this is the exchange of good and service. It's kind of like the exchanges of experiences. So that's why I'm like, couchsurfing full send. I actually am still friends with people I've met through couchsurfing like 5-6 years ago. So it's great though, because aside from meetups, which is another like good app to find things to do in Asia for free with people that speak your language, but also can hopelessly stumble through Asia with you. Because I think the thing about solo traveling is it gets lonely sometimes, because if you're away from your friends, your family for like months on end, it's kind of like, human connection. I'm just grasping at straws, because far and few are there like avenues to really find someone and be like, you speak my language? let's be friends. So literally couch surfing is, hey, you speak my language? You're hopelessly lost too? Let's be hopelessly lost together. It'll be fun.
Did you find that there's like a certain type of person who is like the like house, or not house, but couch surfing host? Like what kind, I feel like it takes a certain kind of person to be like just opening up their home to complete strangers, like for continuous, like a revolving door of complete strangers for no money. Like what kind of people have you met? Or is there like a type of person, or is it just like all across the board?
I think as long as you're open to that, like, human experience of just being like, I have an excess of resource, but I want to be able to share with the human experience of like, oh, you're trying to further your personal growth by exploring somewhere new, don't really have the resources. So I think it's just a matter of like, you pretty much get what you put into it. If you're going in with the mindset of, oh, I'm here to share my knowledge or my resources with this community, then you pretty much get that same energy returned to you. But I've had some like sketch experiences where hosts are like, oh, hey, it's like, follow your gut. Definitely as a solo traveler, follow your gut. But for the most part, the community itself is pretty welcoming, pretty like open to just like accommodating needs and understanding that this might be the first time for some people, but generally there's more good in the world than there is sketchy people that want you to stay at their house immediately and spam your inbox for some reason because you're not here.
Just because safety is a concern, like looking back on your sketchy experiences, are there any like red flags that you saw that made you kind of look back and for like, you know, hindsight is 2020, right? So like, is there anything that you might have noticed that would have given you like a clue to be like, oh, actually maybe I shouldn't have stayed at this place because this is kind of off about this person? So like for anybody wanting to do the couch surfing experience, like what kind of things should they look out for to kind of avoid those sketchy situations?
As like, I'm generally a relatively wary person about other people to begin with, but things that I usually pay attention to is if people are like overeager to be like, oh yeah, like let me know when you're coming, I'll pick you up from the airport. Oh, what are your where are your plans? Where are you planning to go? Like, yeah, it's good to share like what your intentions are, but to be like, give me your exact dates and times. Like, if there's too much detail being shared, I feel like that's something that you should wait a little before disclosing that, because it's kind of like you don't know if they're gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna stalk you through your whole trip. It's never happened to me, but I'd rather plan for the worst, or what's it, expect the worst but hope for the best type of deal. Okay, it's like
prepare for the worst, expect the
yeah.
hope for the best.
Literally how I navigate the world is with that mindset. What's great is couchsurfing community also holds a lot of like, if you're not comfortable with talking to some random internet person, they also, what's great about the couchsurfing app is there's an opportunity to rate hosts. So let's say someone stays, they'll write, oh, this is how the experience was, blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of like a Yelp for people. So it's kind of like, oh yeah, I couchsurfed with this person. Like, oh, I met this person at a meetup. Because not only is it just for hosting, they also hold like community meetups. Like, let's say, oh, I'm traveling to Tokyo. I want to meet other couchsurfers that are in the area. They would hold like, oh, we're having a hangout on this Thursday from 8 o'clock till 10 at a bar. And you can meet there, meet other couch surfers, and just kind of like exchange experiences. So if you don't feel comfortable just meeting with a random stranger, you can arrange to meet them at the meetups and then like check the vibe if you feel like you'd feel comfortable staying with them. It's weird because it's kind of like couch surfing dating, but it's not really dating. It's mostly like, hey, I'm gonna crash at your house. I hope you're cool.
Please don't murder me.
Pretty much. But that's like a safe way to really explore the waters if you're not like really comfortable doing it by yourself. And the thing that's great is it's also very flexible because you can also like couch surf with a friend or like if you prefer to stay with a host of the same gender, there are also hosts you can do that where it's like, oh, I'd be more comfortable staying with a female because I'm female. So there's definitely options. It's very flexible. It's pretty much whatever your comfort level is, whatever their comfort level is how it goes. So if you're able to really communicate like, oh, this is my boundaries in terms of what I'm looking for, the more you advocate for those things, the more likely you'll be able to find people that fit those needs.
Yeah. So like for the people listening to this podcast, obviously their interest is going to be in Japan, so it might be difficult for someone in the US to kind of like check the vibe for somebody living in Japan right now. So like definitely it sounds like you should definitely be checking out like the hosts like reviews to make sure they're not a sketchy person. Like when you came to Japan, you were staying in Osaka, and like were you staying with Japanese hosts who spoke English, or were they also foreigners who kind of like understood this culture of like solo travel? And like not to say that Japanese people don't know it, like don't do solo travel, but you know, were you coming into what was sort of like oh, like you're an American, I'm an American, or like, you know what I mean? Like,
I think a majority of the hosts that I either met or hung out with or befriended in Japan were expats. So they're not Japanese, but they've either lived in the country or work in the country, or they're here for some reason that they want to host other people because they're like the type of person that wants to have that global connection, cultural exchange thing.
Yeah, it was like I was wondering. I was like, I wonder. It just feels. I've never looked too far into this, but it just seems to me that I don't think couch surfing is. Most Japanese people would not be open to the idea of couch surfing. It just sounds like so like a really, really foreign concept for Japanese culture. Just to open your house to random strangers. But not to say that it doesn't happen, but it's something that's so much more established, I think, in Western culture, like this culture of like hitchhiking and helping like random strangers. But I don't know. I mean, I guess that it still happens here in Japan, but maybe within like a Japanese person to Japanese person context, and not necessarily like interacting with from like Japanese person to foreigner. But I don't know, that's what I'm here for. To promote these cross-cultural exchanges. So
well, if you're ever curious, you can always try to scope out some well, I don't know how the nature is now with the whole pandemic and the whole lockdown thing, so it may have changed. I haven't really visited the couchsurfing community recently because I haven't been able to really do any international travel for the past 2 years. So it's probably something I'd want to explore once the borders are open again.
Yeah, I would imagine it would be something like what Bumble is doing right now, where they have like a Bumble badge where it says like if on your profile like, hey, I'm vaccinated. So you know what I mean? So it's like, I guess there's some sort of like badge or just like marker that would say, oh, this host is vaccinated, you know, like you're staying in like a protected sort of household, like or this host would say something like, oh, I'm only comfortable with couch surfers coming into my house if they're vaccinated. So
but that's the thing too though, because with the visa status in Japan, they're still not allowing tourists in, so there really isn't that big of an opportunity for travelers to be like, oh, cultural exchange in Japan during pandemic.
Yes, but they did just recently, in the last week, open up the border for business travel, short-term business travel, and for student visas. And the rumor is that they're expecting to open the borders either spring or summer of 2022. So get your passports ready.
I had to double check when my passport expires. It expires 2024, so I got 2 more years to sit on it before I have to get a new one. Oh, I still have to rebook my Japan flight too, and just like RIP the optimistic me that thought the borders would be open by November. sad day. I'm probably gonna rebook it till next November though, but I'll be there. I'll get there. I already have a ticket.
I'll be here. I'll be waiting. My couch is waiting for you.
Fun.
Yeah. So you had several. You said a couple different ways. I can't even talk anymore. Okay. There were a couple different ways for you to find budget accommodation. So like one option was couch surfing. The other one was woofing.
Yes. Okay. So woofing is another option that I stumbled across 2015. And what woofing stands for is Worldwide Opportunities on Organic Farms.
let me try to say that. Hold on. Worldwide Opportunities for Organic Farms? Woof?
Yeah. It's pretty much like a program that encourages people to like volunteer or work exchange on farms in other countries across the world. And it sounds very niche to be like, oh, I'm gonna go be a farmer in Japan. But it's great though, because there's no money exchange, but what the agreement is that the host is willing to host a person for accommodations and sometimes even like food in exchange for part-time work. And that's how it gets across the whole, oh, you can't make money while you're traveling. So technically, you're not making money because you're exchanging work for services instead of work for money. And it's pretty great though, because it's kind of like, haha, barter system, it's still alive and well. And for woofing, it's been a while since I did it. This was back in 2015. How it works is each country has its own woofing website, and I think it's like $50 or something to get a 1-year membership. And with that 1-year membership, you have access to other woof hosts that are interested in finding people to do work exchange, like either it being a farm or typically it's a farm. My woofing jobs were actually at a ryokan and at a electronics recycling center. So I feel like as long as it encompasses the whole like organic or renewable or something that is kinder to the planet aspect of things, it would be within the realm of woofing.
That's cool, because I feel like this is a pretty niche podcast anyways, that I feel like anyone who's listening to this might be interested. So it's sort of like eco kind of travel. So
yeah,
you're like helping the local community, you're helping the environment, and you're building international relations at the grassroots level. So that I feel like it's a pretty cool opportunity to come to Japan as a tourist, but still get involved with all those things. Where was the ryokan? Was this also in Osaka, Kansai region?
That was in Yufuen, so Kyushu, so more south.
Kyushu.
Yeah, near Kumamoto and what's their other biggest? Fukuoka.
Oh, okay.
So pretty much after Tokyo, I went to Fukuoka, and I flew there, took a bus to Yufuen, and I met my host there. And pretty much the job was, oh, you're gonna help with like checking people in at the ryokan. And yeah, it was pretty great. I had a cute little whole Spirited Away outfit with the whole like apron, like dead ass. I looked like Rin from Spirited Away, and I was just like, I'm anime now.
You need to send me pictures of this.
Oh my god. Okay, yes.
Oh my god, that is so cool. That's incredible. Like, I live in Japan, and that makes me want to go do that, because it's like, and that's so crazy, because that's also a customer service position. And I'm wondering, like, back in 2005, okay, that I'm sure like the borders were open, international tourists were coming through, but I'm sure you were getting a lot of domestic travel and Japanese people coming in too. Like, how did you navigate the language barrier at this like super sounds like a remote kind of ryokan in the middle of the countryside? Like, I can't imagine like everyone coming and speaking English.
Yeah, well, my host, he spoke English well enough to communicate. Like, yeah, given it isn't perfect English, there was like broken English involved, but it was enough to the point where I could understand, oh, take this bus to this route to meet here at this address. So it's enough where their level of English, or my host's level of English was well enough for us to really effectively communicate and like iron out through the agreement of we're here to exchange goods for or services for work, or was it housing? Yeah, sure.
Accommodation, yeah.
Accommodations.
Yeah. You work, you sleep here.
Right out of the horse's mouth. Exactly that.
But like, you were actually interacting with Japanese customers though.
Yeah.
So, like,
well, it was a lot of gesturing, but surprisingly, a lot of my guests that checked into the ryokan were Korean, because of the positioning of Sakai. It's closer to Korea than Tokyo. It's second southernmost region in relation to, what's it called? What's south more? Dang it, Okinawa. Okinawa is the most south, second most south region in Japan. So
yeah.
geographically, it's like one ferry ride from Busan to Fukuoka.
Yeah,
so
and
it was super close.
It's a short ferry ride, isn't it? It's only like a couple hours, maybe.
Yeah, I think it was a 3-hour ferry ride or something. So we'd get a lot of couples who are like, oh yeah, this is like a couple's trip, because my ryokan, each of the rooms, I think we had about like 7 or 8 of them on the main property, and then we had like another property that also had its own like little organic farm spiel, like animal farming type of a aesthetic to it, and that had 2 more rooms for like bigger like families and stuff. But yeah, we mostly got couples, and it was just like, oh, check in, and then we make sure their name matches the reservation, and we'll show them their room. So it's not super difficult. A lot of gesturing definitely helped, and be like, oh, ID. But it was an experience, and then it kind of forces you to be like, oh, I guess I should try to get better at Japanese, and be like, how do I say ID in Japanese? Or Korean, because a majority of our guests were Korean.
That's really cool. I mean, like, it sounds like such a, like, if anyone's like in college looking for like a work opportunity, you know, something to put on their resume, something like a position that you can get experience on the job, literally using language skills and living abroad. It sounds like an awesome opportunity for that. So unique. That's so cool. Did you actually get to use English with anyone? Like, were there actually any English speaking guests that came through?
Well, they knew some English, because like that's the popular foreign language in Asia is, oh, we're gonna take English as your foreign language. But it wasn't like very conversational. I think if anything, my coworkers, because my coworkers were, some were Japanese, some were foreigners. So my foreigner coworkers, yeah, I could speak English with them, because most of them were from like Europe. One guy was from Germany, the other guy was from Switzerland. I had a friend or a coworker from Austria, and I had a coworker that's from Germany, but he's half German, half Japanese. So it's kind of like a little pocket of Europe inside my Japan trip. But then I also had 3 Japanese coworkers. My host / the boss, he's Japanese. His one of the other workers there is Japanese, and we had like this part-timer, which was like a high school student in the countryside that kind of just like worked there for like work experience or something. So that was pretty neat, because it was like, okay, we get the Japanese coworkers whose English isn't as good, but for a Japanese person is good because we're able to like communicate and talk and like have conversations. And then there's like European folks.
That's so cool. It's like the staff is so international. That's so that's a really great way to even like meet new people, just to like stay there and just work in a ryokan. What a crazy opportunity. That's awesome.
I think the other place I also woofed at was in Sakai. So that's after Fukuoka. I was there for maybe like a month and a half. Then I went to Osaka because I had classmates there. Well, my second woofing location was in Sakai, so that's near Osaka. And I went there after I was at the ryokan for about a month and a half. And there I worked at a video game recycling center.
That's so specific. It was like recycling, but only for video games.
It was predominantly video games, but that was super fun because it wasn't just video game recycling. At some point when we were like done with most of the video game recycling part, there was like another property that my host owned, and it was, I'm not sure what he was trying to make out of it. I think he was trying to make like an entertainment hall or something, but we got to do like some farm work and we're literally like chopping down bamboo and burning like burnables.
This sounds like a literal like weeb dream. Like you get to live like the real life like Animal Farm and like like
IRL Animal Crossing.
Yeah,
Japan
Animal
edition.
Crossing Japan edition, and you get to like be in a video game recycling center. So it's just like I'm sure people are coming in with their like old ass retro games, like consoles, and it's just like if anyone is into that kind of stuff, you can see, I'm sure like we'll probably come across a lot of stuff.
It was super dope though.
Else. Yeah.
Because when I was staying there, because I went there in summertime and my accommodation was in this like camper that was like hooked up to electricity and stuff that was outside of the actual like recycling center plant unit house thing business. And the first thing that we did when we settled in was like, oh, this is where you'll be staying and this is cute camper. But I also have like this aesthetic for like van life / tiny homes, so I was like all about living in the camper. And because it was summer, it's like, okay, well, it's not going to be that cold outside anyway. And if it's hot, that means just go outside. I'm in Japan anyway. I'm supposed to be exploring in the daytime. So I stayed in a camper that had a Super Famicom in the camper with a little TV, and he's like, when he settled in, he was like, oh, here, pick some games you want to play, just in case you get bored inside your camper. So it's all in Japanese, but I got like Super Mario, I got Kirby, I got Harvest Moon. I was just like, all right, I'm set.
Oh my god, otaku life right there, yeah.
Dead as me. But it was great though, because it's kind of like, when I was there, I only worked, I think, 5 hours a day, 4 days out of the week. So then weekends, I just went to Osaka and just partied with my old classmates, because I had classmates there. Well, they were exchange students, so I just reunited with them in Japan, and we just partied, so it was really fun.
When you say it was part-time, like, what were the hours like?
It was like 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, like 10 to 3.
Uh-huh.
And then it was mostly just like taking apart Super Famicoms, cleaning everything out, cleaning the cartridges, and just like, that's it. All we did was like clean video game and video game accessories.
I just had Hank Hill pop into my head right there. Like, I clean video games and video game accessories. All right. That's so cool.
I can talk about my experiences for hours.
Yeah, that's a lot of content.
I think what I want to do is, once traveling or the borders open up again, I want to revisit woofing to see what the nature of, like, how the community works now versus 5-6 years ago when I was involved in it.
I wonder if these opportunities are still around, if these little businesses have survived, if they're desperate for like foreign workers who won't get paid anything. Especially if their businesses are struggling. I think it sounds like a great way for them to get free labor. Um, yeah, that's something. Yeah, we could look into for maybe next.
Yeah.
When
But I think that's...
when we do an in-person podcast episode next year.
Uh-huh.
When you come.
I want to
November.
try to go connect with other people who've woofed before, because I feel like the woofing community versus the couch surfing community is significantly smaller than that of couch surfing because of how super niche it is. But there's also like, I think if you are trying to fit within a budget, there are creative ways to really find resources or organizations that can really fit your budget, whether it being like a time constraint, a money constraint, a language barrier thing. Because it's something I haven't done before, but it's also an option for long-term travel, and that's au pair. And that's where you're like doing domestic work for the children of people and you get to live in their house. But I haven't done that, but that's always an option because budget extended traveling is something that I put extensive research in my youth.
Yeah, au pair work is on like the more extreme, higher end of actual like labor intensity. I feel like though, because you're dealing with children, and you're living with a family, and when you're expected to actually like provide like care, and I feel like if someone is actually trying to get around and travel, that sounds like a much higher commitment though. So, but I mean, it is an option if someone is really trying to get their foot in the door here and just try to scope out like a local area or something. So don't want to rule that out either.
If there's a will, there's a way.
Yeah, this is
in
great.
terms of grading. I feel like
report card. I need to have a
shoo.
Yeah. I need a musical like.
We need that the double Jeopardy noise to come.
Report card.
Daily double.
All right, report card. Couch surfing and woofing.
Okay.
What do you grade couch surfing and woofing?
I would grade woofing as an A, just because of how much of Japan I got to experience from having like a working perspective from it, because I was there for more than like 2 weeks. I was there for 3 months. So woofing in itself really gave me an opportunity to really like simulate what living in Japan would have been like if I were to just like, well, the work was different, but simulate, oh, this is work hours, and then this is what people do after work, which is go party and drink excessively. So definitely the opportunity to really work jobs in Japan and just experience it as a whole, I would give woofing A. Would highly recommend if people decide they want to be like, fuck this career. I mean, yeah, sure, fuck this career. I'm gonna go rediscover this wonderful world that we live in. And couch surfing, I would also say it's an A, because I've made some pretty like good friends through couch surfing. I think I at least have 7 or 8 couch surfing friends that I still keep in touch with regularly.
And these are former couch hosts?
Hosts or people I've met at couch surfing meetup.
Okay. All right, so there you have
across
it.
the board.
A for couch surfing, A for woofing. Finally, we'd like to end with some Q&A. Thank you very much for sharing those experiences, Justine. But if you have any more questions for her, or for me, questions, comments, suggestions, or requests for topics you'd like to hear more about, please reach out to us on our social media at Top Class Tokyo on Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter, or send us an email at topclasstokyo@gmail.com. Thank you so much for tuning in, and class is dismissed. All right.
When in doubt, you can always count on me to spiel about my on and off experiences of wandering the world extensively. Because we also can talk about meetups, we can talk about language exchange,